Let me
Mr.
know when to
Chair,
begin.
Mr. Chair, when you're
Yep.
ready, YouTube is live.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5 minutes allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please note that you must include your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment, and in the event of an appeal, the Toronto local appeal body will be sending notifications of appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto local appeal body, and in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. We will call each item in the order listed in the agenda, starting at item number 20. In making your submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicants may proceed with a presentation if they desire. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee, and the committee may ask questions and then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, and there's only one speaker per application, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and the clock is showing on the screen, and we will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark and ask you to wrap up. When addressing the committee, please clearly start off by stating your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and make their presentation to the committee of their application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised, in order to ensure that the revised application is both accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application are invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker at the end of their presentation, and when all speakers have finished their presentations, the applicant is given, or agent is given, an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the application is then taken into committee for a decision. Before we get started, does anyone, either panel or staff, have any declarations of interest to declare with respect to the matters before us on this afternoon's agenda? Okay, if none to declare, Secretary, I guess we'll deal first with the deferral requests. I believe we have several on this afternoon's agenda.
The first one is item 21.
Right, like this morning, there were some that weren't on the memo that were still deferral requests. I don't know if there are any this afternoon, but we have 21, I have 23.
And 25.
25? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a new one, I think.
Okay, that's a new one.
Mr. Chair, members,
And
correct.
20
There was a last minute deferral request that came in yesterday evening for 25, item number 25, 2709 Lakeshore Boulevard West. I'd also like to
Okay,
bring to your
so that's-
attention for item number 21, the deferral request, the agent, Fausto Cortez, is not present on the call at this time.
Okay, maybe he thinks he doesn't have to, or
It should be noted they didn't properly register in advance of the meeting.
okay. In any event, I see one of it's deferral for reasons 3 and 6. 6 is at the applicant's request. So again, Madam Secretary Treasurer, can we proceed in his absence, or should we at least hold it down till the end of the deferral items or the end of the hearing? But it sounds like from the moderator that he may not be showing up. Is that correct? Or did we ever have him on the line?
I haven't noted Fausto on the call yet today, no.
Okay. Barb? Madam
So we'll try to get a hold of him because the committee could have different reasons for deferral, right? So, or questions.
Sorry,
Anyway,
through
it's for item 3 and item 6. One staff related, one a request by the applicant himself.
sorry, through you,
Anyway.
Mr. Chair. I did reach out to Fausto via telephone. He didn't answer, but I did leave him a message. So
Okay, because it doesn't look like we have anything in our bookmark in our package that would indicate that there's a request for. It was just on the planning memo items 3 and 6. Okay, so in any event, let's not belabor. Let's move over to item number 23, 3049-3051 Lakeshore Boulevard West, and that is a request for reasons 2, 5, and 6. The speaker for this application.
Mr.
Yeah.
Graham Barrett.
Okay, Mr. Barrett, how are you? Mr. Barrett, you're on the line?
Yes,
This is
I'm here.
This is an application to maintain the existing medical center on the first floor and the 12 dwelling units. So again, it's a maintained situation. So we want to hear a good reason for a deferral, because from the applicant's point of view, when it's approved, legalizing and maintain, who cares about a deferral and how long it takes? I mean, time to use it. So good morning, Mr. Barrett. How are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West. Here to request a deferral on the item at 3049 and 3051 Lake Shore for a couple of reasons. One, it's been identified that site plan approval is required for this, despite the fact that it is existing. And we've been in talks with planning staff and figured out a solution whereby we're going to look into providing some amenity space, and they're going to waive the requirement for site plans. So we're just working through the details of that and haven't had time to do it prior to the meeting. So that's the one reason. And secondly, I received transportation comments. They were posted on the AIC yesterday, so not a lot of time to review that, but there are a few transportation related matters to look at as well. And really, that's it. We'd like to get back in as soon as possible. We're doing our best to get revised plans and an updated zoning notice minus the requirement for site plan and get that submitted.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Barrett, as a experienced and regular participant before this committee. I'll take you at your word that you're not going to just leave this on the back burner. You are proceeding, so appreciate that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Committee members, any questions for Mr. Barrett, or someone ready for a motion?
No questions. Ready to remove a motion to defer this matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Reddick. We have a seconder for that motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have your deferral. See you again, Mr. Barrett. Be well.
Thank you very much. You as well.
Okay, the next one I understand is item 25, request by the applicant, wasn't on our memo sheet, from planning 2709 Lakeshore Boulevard West. And it looks like the speaker for this is David Mackay. It looks like we have a few other people, a couple of neighbors on the line, and the legal counsel to the residents. Okay, so we have a number of people, a lot of people on the line actually. So let's hear from the applicant on this, Mr. Mackay.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. David Mackay, MHBC Planning. We are requesting a deferral. There's a couple of reasons. Planning staff has requested a deferral for a rental housing application to be filed. We're not deferring because of that. We think that's a separate process that can be dealt with as a condition of the committee's decision. However, there was building permit comments through the internal renovation permit that may necessitate changes to the building, external modifications. We want to confirm that that does not create any additional variances. So we have a zoning certificate request in to confirm that. We hope to have that in the next week or two, and then proceed with either as is or with the additional variances added. So we request a deferral on that basis.
Okay, and I think what we have here, which we don't have, I don't think unusual on these, we just have a planning memo with a couple of check marks as to what the reasons are. In this case, it's not even on the memo, it's not on the list, but we do have a whole fulsome memo from community planning, which I assume the neighbors listening has seen on the IAC. Staff report dated August 4th, asking us to either defer or refuse. If we can't, don't defer. And so they give reasons why they want that done with respect to the rental housing demolition permit being submitted. So I'll just state that in advance of weighing in with the various neighbors on the line here on the issue of the deferral. I don't know if committee members have any questions of Mr. Mackay at this point before we go and vet the people, other people on the line on this matter. Okay, if that's not the case, I guess let's speak to the maybe the lawyer representing the neighbors, and maybe we don't have to hear from anyone else. Although I see we have the Mimico Estates Tenants Association, we have some other individuals. I don't know who they are, but I believe we do have. If I was looking here, unless I saw something, I thought I saw something about a lawyer for the neighbors.
Mr. Chair, maybe we
correct?
just go, Mr. Chair, maybe we just go in order with each person on our list to confirm whether or not they are in favor or not of the deferral.
Yeah, I know, but I want to speak to I'd rather hear first from someone who speaks for more than just themselves. So it looks like we have Star Smith, Mimico Estate Tenants Association. Let's start off with that person, because I can't really read. I thought I saw a lawyer here. Oh, it says, yeah, it's over on the margin. I couldn't see. Legal counsel to residents, Robert Zalowski. Let's hear from Mr. Zalowski first on this issue.
Hello, Mr. Clark.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. So I guess I'll start by with the caveat that I'm not a municipal lawyer. I'm representing the tenants in front of the landlord and tenant board.
Yeah.
And so I've been asked to attend and speak. And
so all we're speaking about at this point, sir, is the matter of the deferral. No, I don't want to hear anything about the merits of the application.
No, correct.
The issue of the deferral. Thank you.
Yes, I understand that. So
Sorry, who are you representing? Because it doesn't say.
I'm representing the tenants of the building of 2709.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I don't know how many tenants there are, but you're representing them through representing the association. Or
They are a group, they're individual units and individual tenants who retained me to represent them at the landlord tenant board. And this has just become part of the process now.
okay, so but it's not all the tenants, it's a certain number of tenants.
No, it is, everybody who's remaining in addition to people who have left.
Okay, clarify. I just wanted to know that. Okay, fair enough. Go ahead.
Okay. So again, just to speak to the deferral issue, and I'll try to maintain that. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but I will. You mentioned the Mimico Lakeshore Community Network and the Mimico Estates Tenants Association, and both of them have submitted letters, and I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to those, requesting a deferral. And also, as you mentioned, the City Planning Committee has recommended a deferral, and if not, deferral rejection of the application. And the one that I haven't heard mentioned, and I just wanted to draw the committee's attention, make sure that it's in there, is the letter from Councillor Mark Grimes, who also sent a letter in support of deferral and or rejection of the application.
Okay.
For the same reason, for the rental housing demolition
So
application.
it sounds like you and the group you represent are in favor of the deferral.
Well, no, I mean, if we're speaking to the deferral, then yes. If we're speaking to the merits of it, then we're in favor of a rejection of it. But
no, I'm just talking about the deferral.
Yes. So
about the merits in any event. So you're in favor of the deferral. That's all I need to know, sir.
That's our option at this point.
I appreciate you advising us what items are before the committee, and I guess there will be ample time to make sure that everything's before when this matter comes back before the committee at some point.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all I needed to know is about the position. I guess if you want me, we have to weigh in with other people. I see there's a Karen Horwood, 2709 Lakeshore. It doesn't give a suite number, but I assume she's a tenant in the building. We have, so let's just go through everyone. I don't want to, miss anyone here. So the next person to speak with respect to the deferral only is Carolyn Godin.
Thank you for letting me speak. Until May 31st, I was a tenant in Unit 5. The landlord is currently disputing my desire to come back.
Okay, ma'am, all I need to know is if you're in favor of the deferral.
I'm in favor of the deferral, but I also did want to raise one point regarding the process leading up to this hearing. The tenants of the building were not in any way notified. Had we not been following very closely the city's website, we would not have known that a proceeding was happening. And I wondered, is that normal, or should we have received some kind of notification? But the other issue that I did want to raise, which I believe my neighbor Karen Horwood raised with Adam Wills from your office, is that the required sign that was meant to be posted in front of the building to allow the neighborhood to comment was actually only posted for 2 days, and it is gone now. It was posted on August 2nd and it was gone August 4th, and it was never replaced. So we don't feel that the neighborhood was given adequate ability to know that there was an application forward and to appropriately comment.
Okay, Ms. Godin, for that, I'll give you two answers. First of all, we should make the note that's on the record, and for then when this application is brought back to ensure that the signage is placed as required, and then I'll let the Secretary Treasurer weigh in as to, in the situation of apartment buildings, how notice is provided within the radius and how that is accomplished. Ms. Bartosik, in terms of the notice on a situation in an apartment building?
So it is the owner of the site. It's their responsibility to provide notice to the tenants. It's up to them whether they do it through signage or individual notice to each person's mailbox. The city does not have access to tenant information, so we can't send individual notices to the tenants. But that could be also part of the reason for the deferral today, and perhaps with some instructions to the agent on providing better notice to the tenant for a subsequent hearing.
Okay, and clearly we need the rental housing demolition permit has to, and so it seems like everyone so far is in favor. If no questions of Ms. Godin, members, let's hear from the next speaker. Star Smith with the Mimico Estate Tenants Association, and it says that 2531 Lakeshore, it's a neighbor. So it's a tenant in a neighboring business building, it appears, Suite 402. But I believe, speaking on behalf of the Residents Association in that building, so 2531. Do we have Star Smith on the line?
Yes, you do.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good
So
afternoon.
again, I know we only want to hear from you on the issue of the deferral, not on the merits today.
Darn. Anyway, I am absolutely in agreement with a deferral. And there's one additional reason, and that is that there is a legal case underway in view of the one tenant who has been refused entry back into her apartment. So I think that's another reason for
Well, I don't know if that has
deferral.
anything to do with this this committee of adjustment planning application. A civil matter is not doesn't have anything to do with this matter. So in any event, I appreciate you advising that you're in favor of the deferral. And with that, your permission, we'll go on to the next speaker, Karen Orwood at 2709 Lakeshore.
Good afternoon, I'm
That's
Karen.
the building. I guess you're a tenant in the building, I assume.
Absolutely. I've been
Well-
in Unit 3 since 2007.
Okay. So just again on the issue of the deferral, are you in favor of the deferral of this matter? For the various
I absolutely am in favor of the deferral. As to what Caroline mentioned about notification, and then Ms. Bartosik clarified that it will be the owner's responsibility to notify us tenants. In the past, he's not notified us of anything, so how can we be sure he'll comply with the future requirement to provide us notice for something like this?
I'll have Mr. McKay, the agent architect, respond to that in his. Normally, we don't have a rebuttal on a deferral that everyone seems in favor of, but we might as well hear from him. So we'll ask him to comment on that. And I guess the neighbors in the building, the residents, will be very vigilant to inform one another. I assume there will have to be a sign posted in any event in a prominent place on the building. Okay, thank you. Jeffrey Apia doesn't say his connection to this matter. No address provided. Is Jeffrey Apia? Moderator can advise if we have such a person on the line.
Mr. Chair and members, Jeffrey is present on the call and is unmuted.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, welcome, sir. Can you give us your address? Can you provide us with your address so we know what your connection
Address
is?
2709 Lakeshore Boulevard West.
Okay, so you're one of the tenants as well?
I'm one of the tenants in Unit 2.
Yes.
Of the apartment. And I'm in favor of the deferral as well.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Next person is this the last one. It says it's a tenant, Evelyn Afia. Afai.
Affair. Yeah, so this is Evelyn Affair, 2709 Lakeshore Boulevard, also in Unit 2. And I'm in favor of deferral, just like Karen and Caroline also said. I just want to echo that we didn't get proper notification or notice, so I'm in favor of the deferral.
That's been stated on the record, and we'll hear now from Mr. McKay. Good segue as to what's going to be done to make sure that doesn't happen next time this matter is brought back before the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the sign was posted in accordance with the requirements. I'm not sure if it was, bad weather in terms of windy or something, or vandalism, but we'll make sure that the sign is posted accordingly. I will also speak with my client providing the specific notice once it's received to the tenants. And relative to the rental housing demolition application, my client will be applying for that, but it obviously needs direction from the committee as to whether the variances would be approved or not. If they're not approved, he's not going to spend $10,000 or $20,000 on a rental housing demolition application. So it's a chicken and egg thing here. And so I understand what planning's saying. I understand the tenants and the lawyers' representation. However, that's a process that we will need to go through if the committee approves it. And I would suggest that we would put that as a condition of approval, similar to other permit applications that are required as part of these matters. So I'm in your hands, Mr. Chair, about that direction. I would request that direction if the committee says file it, or we're going to defer you again or refuse you, then I will provide that direction to my client. But I think it is a bit of cart before the horse situation in this regard. So I am in your hands.
Fair enough. Okay, sir. Members, you've heard we've spent a long time on this matter so far. just on deferral, and that everyone seems in favor of. So can I have a motion and whatever directive you feel is required or appropriate?
I'll
Mr.
move
Chair?
for deferral, Mr. Chair, so that the applicant can potentially update the variances if needed, and also so that proper notice could be provided both to the community and the tenants.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that motion? Ms. McCloskey, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to weigh in this afternoon, and you'll have your chance to deal with this matter on the merits at some point in the future. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mackay, the motion did include giving proper notice to the tenants, so the owner will have to do that next time. And as it relates to the sign, it is the applicant's responsibility that the sign is posted 10 days prior to the hearing, but it also has to stay up. Our suggestion, we can give advice on where to post the sign, but you also may want to post them in the elevators for the tenants for additional purposes, wherever their mail is picked up, just to give full disclosure to them as well.
Okay, I don't know if Mr. Mackay is still on the line or is muted or frozen or something, but thanks for stating that on the record, and I think we can move on. So we still were dealing with, Mr. Moderator, with item number 21, getting Mr. Cortez on the line. If he is going to be getting on the line, have you called him?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I still haven't heard back from him in response to the voicemail that I left. Maybe we can hear item 20 now, and I'll try calling him again.
Okay, well, I believe that was the only other, we don't have any other deferral requests past item 25 on today's agenda, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's go back to number 20 as suggested, and deal with this. I believe we have a change in speaker. The speaker is going to be Daniel Gowell, the owner, not the arborist. And this is an application to maintain the ancillary structure, treehouse in the rear yard. There are 2 variances. And I believe we have a previous decision, a cover letter, forestry memo, and 5 letters, either 3 or 8 letters of support. It says 1, 2, 3, and then 5. And that's what we have. So we'll hear from Mr. Gowell. I don't believe, are there any other speakers on this?
Good afternoon, members of the committee and those who are attending. Thank you for your time. My name is Daniel, a resident of 45 Park Boulevard. It'd be great, Adam, if you could flip to the slides.
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't mention Urban Forestry in the memo is requesting a denial of the application.
I could speak to that at the first point. We've been in active communication with Urban Forestry. Their decision has been applied to the as-built condition rather than the updated documents written in the updated arborist report and the site plan. This is in regards to the protection of the tree. As a platform is currently built by an acceptable method of support, Urban Forestry suggested they propose 4 legs as a support instead of a compression method. The forestry report will be updated pending the binding outcome of this committee meeting. We hope to speak to the other 2 points today.
Okay, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Adam, if you could go to, oh, I guess you compiled everything. To the plans, please. Sure, thanks. So the project began in the autumn of 2020 when the entire city was locked down due to the pandemic. Playgrounds were restricted and everyone was working from home, and it was quite a tight space. The children of the household were attending school virtually, socializing virtually, and everything was really indoors. So as my project partner and I, both recent graduates of an architecture program, we sought to satisfy the need for an outdoor gathering space, and it manifests through the form of a treehouse. We worked with our arborist closely, arborist Philip from Urban Forestry Innovations, to confirm that throughout the whole process, the tree would be cared for and accommodate for growth in the many years to come. So we also sought feedback from our neighbors to preserve mutual privacy, applied for pre-application consultation, and made adjustments to our design based off everyone's input. Along the way, we had city suggestion to maintain the current platform height to allow adequate sunlight and rain exposure to the underside of the tree to maintain the vitality of our rear yard. So we're here today to request for two minor variances. The first one is the maximum height of any platform is 2.5 meters. We're hoping to bump that up to 3 to maintain that said sunlight exposure. Second variance is in regards, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So yeah, to the sections.
It's just a little laggy, sorry, give it a second.
Okay, no worries. Okay.
Interesting.
Thanks. So the second is in regards to the ultimate height of the structure. The OBC states that it can only be 4 meters. We're requesting for an approximately 5.5 meters to allow for a usable headroom. And with these heights, they're actually aligned to the datum lines of the neighboring structures. It's shorter than our houses. Everyone's houses are 2 stories plus. It's about the same height as our neighbor's shed and in line with our garage. Next, yes. Go ahead. So, go ahead, Michael. Did you have?
I was just going to say, so the use of this, you're basically enclosing around the tree. You're leaving, obviously, like you don't want to hurt the tree. Without the tree, you don't have a treehouse.
Absolutely. So it is
the question of these two minor variances of so where is the damage? Why do they feel that's going to, you have the 2 variances, but what's forestry concerned with? You want to preserve the tree as much as they do. You have 2, new architectural design people. It was COVID. Everyone seems, you got 8 letters of support. Seems everyone's happy with this.
Absolutely. So if we could,
unlike every other application, people want to hurt the trees, and the city's standing up for the trees.
Yeah.
They can't speak for themselves.
No.
In this case, you want to protect this tree more than anyone.
We also want to protect this beautiful tree. It's
for sure
old and
well, just Devin, what happens if the tree wasn't there? Is this then just an addition?
No, this is This project is uninhabitable, so we can't live in it all year round, of course.
Okay, so anyway, I'm sorry for I shouldn't keep my mute. I should have my mute button on for interrupting you. Go ahead if you want to continue.
Okay, thanks. In the last 50 seconds, if you could flip to the photos, and nearing the end of this presentation. So even though the current as-built condition is an arborist acceptable form of support, the city suggests we put legs on, and that's in standing with their intentions, we are going to follow. We've been in active communication with multiple members of the forestry team. We even had one member from the Dangerous Trees Committee come, and they said this was acceptable. Anyways, we don't want any harm to the tree, so we're going to put it on legs, accommodate for enough space for the tree trunk to grow around the structure. And Urban Forestry said that their decision will be revised upon the decision of this committee meeting.
Okay, anyway, I think it's a beautiful design. It should be we should be reading about this in Toronto Life or the Post magazine or whatever else. What a great great idea. And it brings the tree in as part of gives more value to the tree for the family, especially during COVID and the loss of ability to go to playgrounds and things like that. Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comment? Mr. Komarek?
I noticed in our added material, so recently an arborist report was provided, and I believe that addresses urban forestry's concerns. Has urban forestry seen that arborist, the latest arborist report?
Yes, Aaron Dagidi is our report manager, and we've been in active phone call and email communication.
And are they satisfied with what your arborist is saying now?
Yes, even though we couldn't get a written confirmation.
Understood. Okay, because their alternate request is that we impose a forestry condition number 2. And I'm a little confused as to how that would work. And this is my second question, I think, is for staff, because typically if you impose that condition, you essentially have a tree protection zone, which would exclude you from constructing anything around the tree.
So I could answer that. Yeah, it was a consideration, and that's why our site plan was also updated. The site plan now dimensions the distance from the 4 posts that they recommend, and urban forestry would recommend putting up the tree protection zone within those limits, so we don't get from the posts to the trunk of the tree, and everywhere around it we would be able to build. From my understanding, TPZ is around 6 meters from the tree.
So in other words, you're comfortable with us imposing that condition?
With the condition to satisfy as per the site plan of 1.3 meters. Yes, that would be our preference. And there's methods of construction.
Did you have a date for that site plan?
The site plan was, so there was a transition in staff between forestry members throughout the process. We first sent this updated site plan and arborist report in January. And I guess it wasn't relayed recently, but Aaron was able to see it 3 days before this meeting. So there wasn't enough time to review the information.
Okay, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to ask a question of staff now in terms of, I don't know how to tie this. Like, do I tie it to the arborist report without forestry condition 2?
No, because the arborist report is just a report. It's not a condition. If you read condition 2, it's the submission of a complete application for permit to injure or remove a privately owned tree. So in this case, there may be some damage to the tree. They do want the strapping removed and they want posts installed instead, but that could still damage the root system of the tree, and that's why they need a permit.
Okay, so imposing that condition does not prevent the applicant from constructing what he wants to construct.
Correct.
Okay, that's really, I just wanted to get a clarification on that. That's fine.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and even though the intent here is to maintain the tree, you're still getting a permit to injure or remove a tree.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. So
Yeah, it just, yeah, I was getting a little convoluted, so.
Yeah. A little different.
With that in mind, I'd like to move approval subject to forestry condition 2, realizing now that forestry condition 2 will not prevent the applicant from constructing what he wants to construct.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconder of Mr. Komorik's motion, Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Sophia already had her hand up, so it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Gowell, and quite a nice design in my opinion.
Thank you, committee. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, so moderator, have we reached 54 North, Mr. Cortez? If not, let's hold it to the end of the agenda, at which time we haven't reached them, we'll have to defer it anyway. And it's, you know, if you haven't reached them, let's just move on.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I left him a voicemail and he responded via message saying that he was unable to speak right now. Maybe we can, I'll let you know what the outcome of my correspondence with him is, but we can,
okay.
it's probably
We'll
safe to move on to 22.
Oh, let's move on. Item number 22. 9 Snowberry Avenue. It's an application to construct a 1-story addition above the existing dwelling. 1-story. How do you build a 1-story addition? Oh, 1-story. I guess. Okay. It's not on the first ground. It's a 1-story. So it's a 2nd story. And we have variances, 3 variances. Supporting photos, urban forestry comments, they're looking for condition number 1, and we have 1 letter of support. Is there anything in the additional materials, staff?
No, nothing.
Okay, and the speaker for this application, can you advise who that is?
And Baghdadi.
Okay, for sure, only the one speaker. Okay, Mr. Baghdadi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Bamdad Ben Baghdadi from BBA Design Studio, Inc. I'm the applicant and the architect for this application before you today.
Okay, so we have a 1-story addition, like just a top up.
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to advise, I don't think we need any full presentation. We have your supporting photos. Committee members, you'd like anything you'd like to advise the committee of, or else you can just see if someone has any questions for you.
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, and you're okay with the urban forestry condition?
I am surprised actually, Mr. Chair, because the driveway and the walkway is existing and we are not altering or making any changes to the front yard of this property. The purpose of the application is just the 2nd floor addition. And not sure why they're asking for the forestry application to injure or remove the city-owned tree. We're not even getting close to it.
Okay, let's see if anyone. I also see you have a letter of support from the next door neighbor at number, at number 11.
Yes, and also we spoke with our other neighbor at number 7. They're okay, but they refuse to sign the letter.
Okay, committee members, any questions? Particularly with respect to what the applicant has said to say about the urban forestry condition, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I suspect urban forestry just wants to ensure that there's a proper tree protection zone put around it because of heavy equipment moving around.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am showing tree protection on the site plan that has to be followed. The thing is, I have no issues with this condition to be added to the decision, should the committee decide to approve the application, of course. But since this is a CD3, they will require a large deposit to be paid in advance, and I just don't want that to happen if we don't have to.
It's the top up, so I guess, yeah, the equipment is moving back and forth, but are you saying there's plenty of room for that to happen without going anywhere near the tree?
That is correct.
I'm prepared to make a motion with the urban forestry condition if there's no questions.
Okay, no other questions, go ahead. That's your motion.
Motion to accept the application with the urban forestry condition.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that motion? Ms. McCluskey? All in favor? Okay, you have your approval. Thank you, with the condition, sir.
Thank you.
And don't go away, Mr. Baghdadi.
I know
that. Like you're the next applicant because
yes, I am.
Jumping from item number 22, 23 has been deferred. So your item number 24, 25, 57, 59, sorry, Islington Avenue.
Yes.
That's your application. And let me just pull this up. And there's no other speakers. An application to construct a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling. See, they didn't call it a 1-story addition, they called it a 2nd-story addition, which is much more usual. A 2-story front addition and a 1-story side addition. And there are 3 variances on this. And we have revised plans, didn't change the variances and correspondence. We have supporting material. There is opposition. And we have comments from TRCA and Ravines. Okay, and there is only, you are the only speaker.
That is true. Do you want me to introduce myself again?
I guess we know who you are.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
You're
Chair.
not being recorded. So the letter of opposition is from 64 Barker Avenue.
That is correct.
Which is directly south. Okay, so if you can perhaps, I assume you've read the letter, if you can, I guess, deal with that because we don't have the person speaking.
Yes.
Person, but we do have a letter.
Yes. Before I address our neighbor's concern, I just have to
Oh, yes. You can have your presentation. Go ahead.
The Ravine and TRC, they don't have any issues with our application, same as the planning department. If I have, Adam, I can ask you to have my report on the screen, please. Which it is. Okay. Can we go starting from the first page?
Chair, can we just pause to go to the next item? There was a request to participate that may have been missed. So we're going to try to reach out to them. It's at the bottom of their letter in opposition.
This letter I was referring to?
Yes, from 64 Barker. If you look at the bottom, it says we intend to participate in the hearing and would like to register to attend via audio.
Okay, but they have not.
No, I think it was missed by us. So if we can move on to item.
So you want to defer that? Hold up, put this on hold and do the next one, or take a short break?
Sure, that's okay.
What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Just move on to the next hearing and hold this.
The next one is item 26. There's no speakers for that other than the agent.
Okay. So we'll go to number 26. Okay, item number 26, 43 9th Street. This is an application to construct a new dwelling with an attached garage, and there are a lot of variances. I keep scrolling. Number 12 variances. We have supporting materials. We have a report from planning. And I don't know, is there anything in the additional materials staff?
No.
Okay, and city planning is recommending this application be refused. The urban forestry is looking for conditions 1 and 2, and we only have the one speaker, so let's hear from the speaker.
Mr. Chair, my name is Enzo Lacasano. I am the applicant for this project.
Okay, you have a refusal recommendation from city planning, so let's
yeah, we actually worked with city planning, and we sent in revised drawings to Committee of Adjustment and City Planning on July 21st. Staff from Committee of Adjustment did not upload these revised drawings, and then therefore planning assumed that we did not revise the drawings.
And so it sounds like you need a deferral then, right?
And
well,
Mr. Chair,
I prefer not to.
It's my understanding that staff asked for a revised zoning review or waiver, which is what we need in order to accept revised plans. If we don't receive that, we don't upload plans because we don't know what your variances are. So please note that in the future, if you're sending us revisions, you have to accompany it with the zoning that goes with it.
Mr. Clark, we provided a cover letter. We reached out to the zoning examiner and his manager. He refused.
You know, you can discuss this.
I know.
Company time.
What I'd like to do
all
is,
I'm saying to you is
we've revised.
Before us. I don't care that you revise. It's not before us. So you have a choice as to proceed with what's before us and get a refusal, or take a deferral and come back and get it done. And let's not point fingers who should have and who would have.
No, I understand. But Mr. Clark, we've revised. We've made changes as per the planning report. And as most of these variances show, they're very minor and they're existing.
Okay, Enzo, the report is dated August 4th. Today's the 18th. It's not like it's typical where it comes in the day before. They say you haven't done it yet. You should have done it, or I don't point fingers on who did.
We didn't get the cooperation of the zoning examiner.
Okay. Anyway, what's before us, we can't proceed unless you want to probably likely get refused, and that's not what you've done because you've obviously made these changes. So I think you need a deferral here. Okay, without pointing fingers at whose fault it is that it's not before us.
It's unfortunate that this has to happen like this.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do? Luckily, this is Etobicoke and it's not Toronto East York, and you're not going to be pushed on. You can probably get on a relatively on an agenda not too distant future. Correct. Once this gets done, is that correct compared to downtown? So I agree. If we're downtown, this would be a big problem.
Yep.
And I would say to you, you had 2 weeks 14 days from the time this memo came out to figure out what's going on. So anyway, Enzo, you're a very good agent. You appear here regularly, and it's all the other divisions too. So I don't see we have any choice but to defer this.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Matt, can I have a motion to defer, please, in order to allow the applicant time in which to make the, get the changes that he's made, get the revisions before the proper channels, and do the proper waivers so that this matter can proceed.
Let's say
Mark?
we're going to defer this so that the applicant can update the variances.
Okay. Seconder for that motion? Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. We'll see you here again, Enzo.
Thank you, Mr.
Afternoon. Thank you. Okay, so that was the one where we went quickly because we only had the one speaker, but whatever. You never know what's going to happen. So can we go back to the neighbor at 40, is it 43?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
No.
We
Yes.
haven't received a response from the neighbor yet. Maybe if possible, if it's okay with Barb, we can proceed and then hold this potentially a little while longer.
Well, my only comment would be, I think we often see letters that say, oh yeah, and we want to participate, and we're going to participate, and then they just don't show up, and at least we have a letter. So that's my only comment. It's not the first time someone has said in the letter, I'm going to participate in the hearing, and then they don't participate in the hearing. So let's hold it down to the end of we were in the middle of this, correct already? So let me know what you want to do.
Can we just hold it till the end there?
Absolutely.
Just to at least attempt to try to reach them.
Yep. Anyway, I believe what they've stated in their letter makes their condition clear. But let's move on then. What's the next one? That was the one we're holding is 24 on Islington, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chair. The next item would be 27 A, B, and C, 12 FOCH Avenue.
Correct. Okay. Okay. So 27 A, B, and C.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Ian Robertson.
Okay, Mr. Robertson, you want to just hang on for 1 second? I'm going to have staff make an introduce this application and advise what's before us. Ms. Bartos?
Okay, so there are recommended conditions from Engineering and Construction Services and Forestry. You do have revised plans, variances, and waivers for the 2 minor variance notices. There are 2 sets of revisions. So when you're looking at the revisions, it should be revised agenda page number 2 in both cases for parts 1 and for part 2. There's an email from the agent, a cover letter, the Engineering and Construction Services report. Forestry is recommending refusal. We have the advisory email from Metrolinx. And then in your additional materials, we have the revised plans to match the revised variances, the email from the agent acknowledging that, and an arborist report. The conditions from Engineering and Construction Services should just be for the variance files. Yeah.
Okay, and Mr. Robertson is the only speaker on this application. Welcome, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have the application before you for a severance application and some minor variances that associate to each parts 1 and part 2. As you just heard, we have letters from several of the departments. All but one is in support of this application, which is Forestry. And I'm happy to go through the application variances by variance if need be, but I'd actually like to focus on the Forestry one, as I believe having planning support and other department support and no objections from local residents, that the only point of contention on this site is probably Forestry's comments and the trees. And so I also sent an email this morning, my colleague did, to Daniel with a site plan. Would you guys happen to have that added document this morning?
Nothing from this morning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do. Give me one moment to bring it up.
Okay, but we shouldn't be accepting materials this late.
My
It was
apologies for
submitted
the.
this morning. We're not presenting it today. We don't have it for the minutes.
Okay. It was just a point of relevance for a comment to address forestry, but I understand your point. My apologies. So the issues in front of us, I think that the most ones are the forestry issues and their concern for the trees on the property. Our application, should we have decided not to sever this property and build two separate houses and decided to build an as of right house, these same tree implications would still apply to this application. And the point of that being is that the severance application and the variances themselves shouldn't necessarily be tied to the tree issues that forestry has. My proposal would be that I look for your direction, of course, is that we approve the application with conditions to satisfy forestry's requirements. The two trees that are the most contentious are the city tree on the boulevard, which has got a proposal for injury but not removal, and the larger, more mature tree, which is on the lot line to the south, is also stated for injury but not removal, and we'll do everything in our power to keep these trees in place and intact. Given the developments in the area and whatnot, including our neighbor to the south, who has done a relatively recent project as well, they managed to do their construction without hurting this tree, and we believe we can do the same thing with our development. So it's our belief that these trees and the forestry's requirements can be dealt with our arborist report that was submitted and continued discussions with them. And so I look for you as a committee to approve our application for the severance and minor variances with the support of planning and the other departments. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Members, anyone have any questions? I don't have the visuals, everyone. Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? And if not, is someone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I think I'm good to go with the motion. This is a proposal for two relatively modest houses, and I believe it's a desirable and meeting the tests required to move forward. I would therefore like to propose approval of the severance and the related variances as revised, subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2, and subject to the usual ECS conditions for severance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seconder for that motion. Ms. McCloskey, this is very close, so it looks like we have a unanimous approval. All in favor? You have your approval unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, now we're into, I guess, for the rest of the afternoon, we're into previously deferred items. First one is item number 28. It's deferred from the July 4th, 2019 hearing. That's before COVID. 86 Shorncliffe Road. It's an application to construct a one-story north side addition to the existing transfer station facility. Speaker is Mark Marino. He may or may not be available right now. He may have another hearing. Moderator is Mr. Marino on the line.
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So this one's been on the back burner since before we knew what COVID was.
You're correct, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So please let us know give us some background or history.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I am representing the property owner. Mr. Chairman, before the committee to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to construct a one-story side yard addition to building D, which is at the back of the subject property. I believe that you're familiar with the requested variance, so I won't get into the particulars. I would just like to point out the following. Site plan approval waived because the addition is very minor in nature. The rear yard setback is not changing. We are building in line with the rear of the building. The maximum GFA is for both lots 33 and 34. In this case, we're dealing with lot 33. The addition only increases the maximum GFA by 0.88%, which is less than 1%. There will be very little impact on the northerly side yard. The owner is expanding the facility for a truck loading area. And it's also my understanding there's no objections from the city, and it's also my understanding there's no objection from neighbors. Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, it does meet the 4 planning tests, and I'd be pleased to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the previous materials from, again, a long time
I believe there is an objection from the neighbor at the rear.
And there was an objections in the previous hearing back in July. Weir Folds on behalf of the neighbor at 55 and 41 Medulla Avenue. I think there says 2 letters, but I only seem to see this 1 letter. But what happened to that neighbor's concern? Are they still valid? They certainly haven't written in. I don't think it was tenanted to certain tenants were there. Maybe they're not there anymore.
Well, my understanding is from dealing with the property owner, that was from back in 2019, and those issues have been resolved, is my understanding.
Okay.
That's why it was originally deferred in the first place.
Okay. So as we have nothing before us to this application in 2022, no one's objecting. Okay. Members, any questions for Mr. Marino, or is someone ready for a motion?
So just a question, if I may, for clarification. So this is one of the waste transfer buildings that's being expanded, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. At the back of the property, which is building D.
Right, okay. And I'm assuming that building is fully compliant now in terms of property standards, no longer has any holes in it and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, that is correct. It is compliant.
Okay, I'm comfortable that it's a minor variance and meeting the 4 tests then, and I'd like to move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion? Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next application is item number 29, 21 Thames Avenue. This matter is deferred from the May 5th, 2022 hearing. We have okay, so this is an application to construct a new detached dwelling, detached garage, and there were 3 variances. So I believe perhaps we have presentation from the applicant, arborist report, copy of the sign posted. We have opposition, we have planning comments, and 3 letters of opposition. Planning is looking for a condition of approval that it be constructed as illustrated as it relates to parapet height. We've got 7 letters of opposition and a petition in opposition. We have materials from the previous hearing as well. We have the applicant, Lada Fard, and we have the neighbors at 16 and 14 registered to speak as well. Okay, and this is an urban forestry looking for condition number 2. Is there anything in the additional material, staff?
Through you,
Nothing in the
Mr. Chair.
additional
No, there's
materials?
not.
Okay, so let's hear from the agent for the applicant.
Good afternoon. This is Vedani Knopfard. I reside at 231 Forestry Boulevard, Toronto, and I'm here today to represent Mr. Vincent Colaro, who is the owner of the property.
Okay, welcome. Please give us a
Thank you so much.
Some history of this deferral back in May.
Okay, so I would like to start with a bit of a history on this project. The 21 Thames property was purchased by Mr. Colaro in order to build a custom home for one of his family members. The hearing was originally scheduled for May 5th, but we realized at the time that there were concerns from the city staff and the neighbors about the project. So my client requested a deferral in order to address those concerns. And through the collaboration and working with city planning staff, as well as urban forestry, we reduced the number of variances from 11 to 4, 3 of which are basically addressing the request for the height variance. The first variance that we are asking today is an increase in the FSI from permitted 0.45 to 0.55. This increase in the FSI is not unprecedented in this neighborhood, and it's in line with the recent Committee of Adjustment decisions. Please see slide number 4. Yeah, next one. Yeah. While we understand that each case is assessed based on its own merits, I would like to bring this to the attention of the panel that there are various numbers of precedents that have been approved in the past for a similar or even higher FSI in the area, from which I would like to bring to the committee's attention the following recent cases. 6 Eltham Drive was approved for 0.64 FSI in May, 22 Delma Drive was approved for 0.57 FSI in June, and 19 Putney got approval for FSI of 0.58 in June by this very committee. Although we are asking for an increased FSI, I would like to emphasize that we maintain all other items related to the mass of the building within the zoning bylaws limits. We have a length and depth of 16.75 meter versus permitted 17 meter length and 19 meter depth by zoning bylaws, and provided 1.4 meter side setback on the west side of the property, while 1.2 meter is minimum required by the zoning bylaws. So we did a lot better, in those 2 areas. We also remained within the permitted coverage of 33% and added no additional area to the coverage. Although we are asking for higher FSI, we added no additional area to the coverage. And we also provided the required front and rear yard setback within the zoning bylaws. So for the above mentioned reasons, we believe this variance is minor in nature. The rest of variances reflect an increase in height. We are requesting an additional 34 centimeters in height, almost around a foot, which brings the building height from the permitted citywide zoning bylaw of 7.2 meters to 7.54 meters. And this increase requires the increase for the parapet height as well, which is shown in item number 3 in the zoning bylaw, in the zoning review. And as the old Etobicoke zoning bylaw and the new citywide zoning bylaw don't match on this matter, the building height requires variance again against Etobicoke zoning bylaw as well, which is shown on item number 4. Again, this variance is not an unprecedented variance, and there are a number of approved cases with similar or higher heights in the neighborhood, which could be seen again in slide number 4. As an example, 19 Putney was approved for 7.54 meter height, exactly similar as what we are requesting today. And 6 Helsby Crescent was approved for a flat roof with a height of 7.77 meter, which is higher than what we are requesting today. And again, for the same reason that the mass of the building has been designed in response to other zoning bylaws, such as coverage, setbacks, building length, depth, everything else, we believe that this minimal increase in height is considered minor in nature. At the end, I would like to point out that we received the staff report, and as noted in their report, they were satisfied that the requested variances are considered minor. There is a condition on the parapet height and design, which we agree with it, and we will commit to comply with that. I really hope that these explanations are satisfactory and the member of the panel would kindly approve the proposed variances today. Thank you very much for your time.
Ms. Farp, thank you for that presentation. It was very comprehensive, your written and your verbal. And also, I guess we have this planning report, which outlines your reduction of variances from 11 to 4, reduction of 2 other variances, and by implication that they're asking for a condition over the parapet height, that they're in support and they don't feel it's overbuilding. So having said that, and your reduction, let's hear, we have two neighbors on the line. Does anyone have any questions for the agent at this point, or else we'll hear from the neighbors and she'll have a chance to return? But is there any questions that come to mind at this point? And I was unable to see the clock because my layout icon is directly over where the clock is. So I don't know if someone else can please keep track of the time. I can't see it. Okay, so no one has any questions for, I don't have a visual on everyone. So does anyone have any questions for Ms. Fard at this time? I guess not. I don't see them, but I only see Mr. Kumorik, so par for the course. Let's hear then from the first neighbor at number 16, Ms. Vivian.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for giving the Thames Avenue residents this platform to discuss our concerns for the proposed build for 21 Thames. Would you like me to start?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
My name is Gina Vivian. I live at 16 Thames Avenue, but I will be moving into 18 Thames, which will be directly across from 21 as we've renovated 18 Thames Avenue, just to give you an idea of exactly where our house will be situated across from 21 Thames. And could someone kindly, I submitted a picture of the actual 21 Thames adjacent to the other houses beside them, if that could be pulled up as well.
It's on the way. Continue.
Okay, thanks. Let's discuss Mr. Galaro's plans of his build to the 3 variances to the zoning bylaw he's requesting. For number 1 is the FSI. Since it's 0.45 as the bylaw, he wants a 0.55. That's actually 24% above the bylaw, which is essentially a quarter of the house. In his original application, it was 0.57. So if you're going from 0.57 to 0.55, it's really only a 3% decrease in FSI. So we don't feel that's a significant change. And in addition, on the site plan drawing of his A1-2, there's a hatched area which is equal to 33% of the lot area, which is right at the bylaw lot coverage limit. But if you take the outline of his foundations shown in the basement plan, A2-1, it amounts to 36.4% coverage, which is 10% over the bylaw. Does the foundation outline not constitute what is covering the lot? We're also questioning if this should actually be a variance as well, as it appears to us that the actual lot coverage is over the bylaw according to how we interpreted the plans. There's many reasons our homes don't take up the full lot coverage limit for the bylaw in the first place, because it impedes on your neighboring houses and encroaches on their basic enjoyment and function of their home. For example, the house west of him at 23 Thames will no longer enjoy her view. There'll be lots of shadowing outside her newly renovated kitchen. She will be greeted with a brick wall, which is the proposed attached garage, which there has never been an attached garage on the street. This will be setting precedent if it is allowed. There is no attached garage in all of Thames Avenue. Also, the plans show a balcony on the southwest corner on the second story, which will be peering over to her backyard. And in addition to the east side home, the neighboring home 19 Thames, they're requesting clarification on what's being proposed along their shared lot line. If a fence is introduced, it would greatly impede their ability to park their vehicles and open their car doors. That's how narrow the driveways are. And they're also concerned with the closeness and depth of the excavation adjacent to the garage, and they would like clarification on construction methods to avoid undermining and damage to their garage. And just to quickly highlight the driveway, the bylaw is 3.2 meters. The original plan was 4.34, but his current plan is 3.2, but that's only the asphalt portion of his rendering, but that's not the complete driveway. He also has a 1.91 of interlock on the right side on his plans, and this gives us a total of 5.11, which matches his curb cut request of 5.1. So clearly his driveway width is over the bylaw as well. And we're also wondering how this curb cut is not going to impact the young tree that is on his boulevard. And the last 2 points, the height and the parapet, we had some confusion in response to the height and parapet. We would like some clarification on that. Item number 2, the drawings show the roof height at 7.54, which is exceeding the 6.5 bylaw section 320-42.1 6.1.b.2. This is confusing because the parapet height of 7.89 meters is referenced in this variance item. But for item number 3 from our calculation, the top of the parapet on the drawing shows 7.89, which is 1.39 above the bylaw height of 6.5, and the variance item number 3 shows 0.69 over the bylaw height. Regardless, is excessively over the height by 16%, and no other Thames Avenue house has been over the height limit, including all houses that have been newly renovated, and there have been quite a few. We also are asking the chair and the committee to clarify how Mr. Gallardo can simply resituate the same bill just by pushing it to the back of the lot ever so slightly. He has eliminated 7 variances from the original 10, yet the FSI has only decreased by 3%. Other than removing a small room in the basement he labeled as a gym, the above-ground building envelope remains generally unchanged, yet the overall scale of the build remains a disruption to the overall fabric of the street. This affects everyone living on Thames Avenue, especially the houses beside it. We believe this is not a modest home, respectfully. In regards to the picture that I've submitted of 21 Thames Avenue, thank you very much. This picture shows the existing house in relation to the neighboring houses. We kindly request, Mr. Chair and the committee, to see a rendering similar to this picture with the new proposed build in relation to the neighboring homes to help Thames Avenue residents understand how this proposed bill will actually fit in. Again, I want to thank you again, Mr. Chair, and the committee for listening to the Thames Avenue families' concerns. We truly care about our street. We will continue to support renovations and builds that enhance the fabric of Thames. There are 32 homes on our street in total, and we submitted to you 32 signatures, all residents of Thames opposing this build for the reasons that I have outlined. It is safe to say we are unanimously opposing this scale of the build, that it is in our view anything but minor. It would definitely set precedent as this will be the first build of this magnitude on our street. That's why all the residents of Thames had signed the petition, because this could directly affect them in the near future. We are respectfully requesting you, the chair and the committee, to take our unanimous opposition into consideration in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vivian. Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? And just to clarify, you're at 16. You're at 16, moving to 18. So you're going to be one house closer, like almost directly across the street.
Thank you.
And before that, you were one over. So still pretty close.
Yes.
In terms of, and I do see the petition here, and I see that it is dated August, so it's not back from the May application. Okay, we have, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Vivian before we go on to the next speaker? Linda Reagan, I can't read the last name here. I can't read my writing because Linda Reagan Barisco at number 14. Gina's neighbor. Soon to be a neighbor, one over. Is Linda on the line?
Yes, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes. All right, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Gina. That was a very articulate presentation. Good afternoon, chairs. And I just like to reiterate my concerns and those of our neighbors on Thames Avenue regarding this build at 21 Thames Avenue. I realized that the representative for Mr. Gallardo had stated that there was a precedent for these builds. However, we were never consulted about builds of such magnitude throughout our neighborhood. We've only been made aware of the ones on our street. I'm very concerned because I think that once we allow this to go through, it's going to be very difficult to stop any future builds of such enormity. I believe that in other municipalities, such as recently in Richmond Hill, they were concerned about the size and scope of a particular house there, and now they're going to be revisiting their allowances for variances. But for those people on that street, it's too little too late, and that's what we're trying to prevent. I really can't understand why these builders can totally change the fabric of a neighborhood solely for their own financial benefit. I know that he's saying that there's a family member that's moving in, but I believe that's new to me and to other people. I'm concerned that, as I said, once this precedent has been set, the homes will only get larger and larger. I don't feel that he's really taken into consideration the neighbors' concerns and adjusted his variances accordingly. If he did, he would have changed them to a greater scale by now. I'd really appreciate if the committee could send a strong message of our concerns to this builder and future developers that we need to follow the rules and the guidelines. It's not for our own personal financial gain that we can just push the limits of these variances and build according to that. We need something that fits with the fabric of our neighborhood. We don't want large driveways that are going to be possibly killing the roots of existing trees or newly planted trees on our neighborhood. We don't want to be living in the shadow of a new build. We're a very tight-knit street and community, and I please respectfully ask you to object to his newest his newest plans for this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan-Boroska. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, if not, we'll go back to the applicant, Ms. Fard, for her rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there has been lots of points raised and concerns raised here. So let me start with responding to the fabric of the neighborhood. Although the style characteristics of the house is not among what is being addressed in this committee, I'd like to mention that renovations and new builds have taken various paths to address this issue in the neighborhood. Some neighbors have chosen traditional style and some, like 17 Thames, while providing pitched roof design, created a completely contemporary look and feel. For 21 Thames, although we chose a modern look and design, we tried to come up with a modest and humble structure that will blend in with the neighborhood through choice of material and honest design. And instead of mimicking the different styles and typologies in the neighborhood, we proposed a modest design with no intention of showing off or undermining the existing fabric of the neighborhood. And by using brick, light stucco, and wood panel siding, we brought warmth and humble characteristics to the design. And I do understand that the residents and the neighbors are concerned about the new construction in their street. But again, although my client had another actually property close by under his corporation, name, this property, he purchased it himself for a member of his family member. And it is very dear to him and very personal to him. And
okay, that's
it is so.
What he's going to, whether it's going to be for him or resale.
Okay.
We're not really, we don't know.
For the driveway, with regards to the driveway and the front yard, soft landscaping, we provided all necessary, requirements for the zoning bylaws. And we are not asking for any variance for the width of the driveway or the extent of it, or even the minimizing or reducing actually the required soft landscaping area in the front yard setback. So that is not our intent to apply for. That's not the variance that we want to actually apply for. And with regards to the reduction that we made, if we can, have a staff report, up and ready, you will see that, to what extent, we worked really hard with them. We worked really hard with them to reduce all the items, all the 11 items that we had, in the previous application. The current application, the FSI for the current application is only 22% over the zoning bylaws, and we used to have 29%, which is 7% reduction. And although the percentage seemed a little bit high, but basically we are requesting for an additional 49 square meter in a 2-story house. If you look at it that way, it's not a huge, number. And the top of our flat roof is only at 7.54 meters. That's what zoning bylaw refers to the height, not to the top of the parapet, to the top of the flat roof height. So it's 7.54 meter, which is noted on our elevations clearly. And the parapet height is at 7.89, which is only at certain, extent at the front and back of the house, and not on the sides. The definition of the building length and FSI and area and everything else is clear in the zoning bylaw. And I do understand, that some neighbors might have concerns that, what about the foundation wall? What about this and what about that? So unfortunately, maybe that's a lack of the zoning, but it's not in the zoning definitions. It's not in the definitions that we are dealing with, at the zoning, in the zoning. So, and I would like to mention it to the committee that, we previously had in our first original design, the building length that we had was 20.39, which would reduce it to 16.75 now. Almost more than 3.5 meters, reduction. And the 16.77 meter is even less than what the zoning bylaw allows us, which is 17 meters. The zoning bylaw allows us for 17 meters length of building, which reduce it actually to even better, number, 16.75. So we really believe that, this building is not unproportionately,
Yes,
larger than, what is allowed in, what is allowed in zoning bylaw. And with regards to trees that the neighbor mentioned, it is clearly noted in our arborist report, and we've been in discussion with urban forestry, and they are in favor and in favor with this application, with what we are trying to do with protecting the trees at the front yard setback or
I'm going to have to
the
ask
neighbor
you to
trees.
stop. I'm going to have to ask you to stop. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that that rebuttal. It was very good. In terms of one thing I want to bring up, because one of the neighbors, I don't want any unconception that somehow there was some, there was some sleight of hand involved where they just took off point. So how did they eliminate all those variances? Just to let them know that the variants are identified by city staff and reviewed. And I'll just read from the report a little bit. The applicant was deferred at the request of the applicant to provide an opportunity to revise and to work with city planning staff. The application was substantially revised regarding the following changes. They go through the elimination from 11 to 4 variances and the reduction of others. And they basically go on to say that they've revised and have no concern with the application. I understand for the residents of the street, it does, even though the variances they're rather modest from what we see and what city planning has opined. But obviously when you're a change from a 2-story from what previously are 1-story houses in the vicinity, it is a major change for the neighbors. But just to weigh in with my understanding of what this is. They did make substantial changes and didn't just have some sleight of hand by pushing it back and suddenly they all disappeared. Anyone else have questions or comments they want to make to either any of the parties here? Or can I have a motion with some commentary?
I have some questions, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I know that there's no variance being sought for driveway width, but I'm still going to ask this question. What is the purpose of the so-called interlocking walkway when the walkway doesn't really lead to an entrance?
That's a valid question, and it's just for limiting the providing the minimum soft landscaping that is required in the front yard for maintenance issues.
But is that interlock not being considered? It's not considered soft landscaping. It's hardscaping.
But at the same time, the asphalt driveway has a slope to it, and there's no way that a car can park actually beside that, because the interlocking surface is lower than that. But again, this is not a variance that we are requesting today. If this,
no, I understand. I understand that. And that's why I prefaced my question. And I'm assuming you still meet the minimum softscape requirements for the front.
Yeah, and if that's a concern, during permit or zoning review again, we will revise drawings accordingly. But we didn't receive any concerns from the zoning reviewer so far.
Yeah, okay, it kind of surprised me, but anyway, okay. Like that's fine.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. I noticed that there is a city tree located directly in front of the home, but I don't believe Forestry is requesting a condition 1, only a condition 2. I just want to clarify that they are only requesting condition 2.
That's all I have noted as well.
Okay, so I guess they're not concerned about the city tree that's there.
It looks like it's a smaller one, so perhaps its root system isn't that big yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'm good to go with a motion if no one else has any questions.
I think you're good to go.
Okay. I believe that there's been, as the chair pointed out, substantial revision to the original application. And I sympathize with the neighbors with some of their concerns, one of which I share, but it's not a variance, so I can't really speak to it. And I believe what we need to do here is look within the context of what is being asked for in relation to what is permitted as opposed to what currently exists. And when you take into context what is permitted, then these variances, I believe, are minor. And for that reason, I'd like to move approval, subject to some conditions, subject to forestry condition 2, and also subject to the planning condition, which ties this to the plans of July 14th as related to the parapet height.
Thank you, Mr. Comerc, for that motion. Do we have a seconder for Mr. Comerc's motion, please? Ms. McCloskey? All in favor? It's unanimous. You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Fard, and thank you to the neighbors for your presentations, which were excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Can I please step away for just 2 minutes just to grab some water?
Well, then why don't we just do a 5-minute so everyone can, we've been at this for an hour and a half, so we might as well take a 10-minute break, return 2:45. Thank you.
Thank you.
call-in user using the phone number 416-859. Can you please confirm your name and the reason why you are on the meeting? Again, call-in user 416-859. Can you please identify yourself? One more time, call-in user 416-859. Can you please identify yourself?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, before we resume this afternoon session, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we still have not heard back from Fausto with respect to item 21, as well as the neighbor for Islington. I'm not sure which, yes, I'm not sure which item it was, but that one. Sorry, item number 24. I just had a look at my agenda sheets.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
I'm muted. Sorry about that. Number 24, I suggest we go back to that. I don't know about waiting for a neighbor. The neighbor never indicated, other than in their letter, that they plan on participating. We often see that and people don't participate. So unless we have something in particular, or let's hold it to the end of the meeting, but at that point, we're going to deal with it. Same thing with the deferral request for the gentleman who's not here. I don't think we need him for a deferral request. We already have his consent because it's for items 3 and 6. So
Yeah.
That's what I have to say. Let's proceed however you wish to proceed. Are we doing number 30? Are we doing number 21? Or are we doing number 24?
It's entirely up to you, Mr. Chair. We can proceed however you feel is best. I did reach out to the agent for item 21 multiple times via email and telephone, and I haven't gotten a response. Same with the neighbor for item 24. I reached out to them a couple of times via email and have not heard a response as of yet.
Okay, let's deal. We're going to deal with those two right now. Okay, item number 21. He's not here. It's a request for a deferral from staff and from the applicant. So I don't believe we strictly need him on the line for that. If someone can tell me why we need him on the line for that, I'll listen. But we do not need him on the line for that. It is now 2:50. The meeting started at 1 p.m. Next time Fausto appears before us, we can ask him why he wasn't on the line. But I don't see how anything goes from that. So item number 21, 54 North Drive, we had a request for deferral from for items purpose 3 and 6. If I can have a motion to defer that item.
Mr. Chair, it was also, the agent asked for the deferral TRCA and planning, so we need to know in the motion for what purposes we're having.
I assume all three.
Okay.
McCluskey?
So sorry, now there's, so TRCA planning and urban forestry?
Agent, TRCA and planning.
And specifically the agent. Well, he's not here, but he did. It's not like we're imposing a deferral on him because he asked for it, and it's 2 hours past the start time.
Yep, no, that makes sense.
Okay.
So I'll move to defer to allow the agent more time to review the application and speak with TRCA and planning staff.
Thank you. I have a seconder for that motion, please. Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? I don't see Stan, so we'll mark him absent for that.
I'm in favor.
Oh, you're there? Okay, we just don't have you on the screen. Okay, thank you. So that one's done. Item number 24, 2559 Islington. I believe Mr. Baghdadi. Is Mr. Baghdadi on the line?
Yes, good afternoon again, Mr. Chair. This is Bamdad Ben Baghdadi from BBA Design Studio, Inc. I'm the applicant and the architect for this application.
Correct. And if my recollection is correct, we had already heard from you, and we were just waiting for this neighbor who wrote in, who said they wished to participate but didn't pre-register and didn't show up at the meeting. And again, we're now 2 hours into the meeting. And we can all read this letter we have in terms of saying that we considered where there are concerns. It's a letter from Tamina Siddiqui. So I don't believe we need to hear from you. Is that correct, members? You recall that? Please advise if you need Mr. Baghdadi to refresh anything on this application.
I just have a question, if I may.
Sure.
The side yard setback variance, what is the current setback, do you know?
It's the existing 0.9 meter, which we are building over the garage.
That's what I assumed. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So having waited for the neighbor for 2 hours, having read their letter, I believe we didn't, I don't know, Mr. Baghdadi wants a opportunity to rebut, to answer that letter, but the fact that we've held this thing down is, I think, unusual, given we often see references in letters to people saying their intention to participate and then they don't participate. So committee members, do you wish to anything to be clarified, or are you ready to weigh in with a motion on this? And again, it's an application with 3 variances for a 2nd-story addition over the existing dwelling, a 2-story front addition, and a 1-story side addition. Mr. Komorik.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. I just wanted to make sure that the setback isn't being made worse than what it is currently. So I believe that was one of the concerns of the neighbor, was a setback, but the setback's not changing. I believe the requests are reasonable and meet the 4 tests, and would like to move approval with no conditions.
Thank you, sir. I have a seconder for that motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
thank
Mr.
you, committee.
Baghdadi. We'll see you here again. Be well.
Sure, thank you.
And thank you for your patience in waiting while we held this matter down. So you can have a good rest of the afternoon. Our next application, then, we're at item 30, I believe, 8 Valois Court.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee member.
Yeah, Mr. Suthar, hold on a second, please. This matter was deferred from the April 21st, 2022 hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, just hang on. Madam, okay, just trying to get back to this item from item 24. And it's basically a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 5 variances. As I said, it was deferred. We have supporting materials, cover letter. We have a planning memo in terms of rescheduling. It says they will not be commenting on this application as the revised application addresses our concerns, so planning is fine. We have urban forestry is looking for a refusal, and we have the neighbor present from 7 across the street, Mr. Shuthar, after you speak. Is there anything in the additional materials, staff?
10 form letters in support.
Okay, that's a good thing to note. 10 letters of support in the form letters and the supporting materials. Okay, Mr. Suthar, go ahead and make us, how about you make us a brief presentation, advise what happened. This matter was the committee in April.
Yeah, good afternoon, member. We refer the applications on the hearing from April 21 to comply with some planning concerns, and we revised the drawing to reduce the lot coverage from 37 to the 33.03, and also we eliminate the building heights, wood deck, and also we increase the rear yard, because this lot is the irregular pie-shaped lots, and our both side lot line is not equals, and there is a 5 feet difference between the side lot line. Also, the rear lot line is not straight and is come inside towards the inside of the lot, and is almost 1.49 meter difference from north north corner to the middle of the rear lot line. So it's almost 5 feet back from the rear. Right? That's why we are need the rear yard variance for that one due to irregular pie shape. And also regarding the front yard setback, because the existing front yard setback is right now is 6.96 meter, and we are asking the rear yard is 7 point something, and the requirement is 8.33 meter, and is a irregular pie shape. Once you see my presentation material, you see the side lot line is an irregular shape, and most of the area is encroached in the front yard for the porch, and the south corner of the garage corner, that is only the encroachment in the front yards, and the north corner is more than 8.55 meter. So we are fine for the front yard setback over there. So this variance we need for the shape of the lot and the size of the lot, and also the gross floor area FSI, because this is small lot, and we reduce the house from 0.65 to the 0.6 to compare to satisfy with the planning department, and now they are fine with that ones. And also regarding the urban forestry comment and concern regarding the city tree, that tree is too small, 0.1 centimeter diameter, and we are maintaining the existing condition and the city boulevard. We are maintaining the existing driveway and existing curb cut on the city side. So we are not touching on that portions, and we will apply the complete applications to the urban forestry for review and to get the permit from the city. And that's my concern and representation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. It looks like my list, the speakers at 7 Valois, it says will not be speaking. Mr. Moderator, is that the case? They're not speaking, so why are they on the speakers list?
They are concerned regarding the front yard.
Sorry,
Hello?
through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, they are.
They will not be speaking.
Okay, so they first registered to speak and then decided they're not speaking. That's why they're on the list, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Sir, they're not going to be speaking. So let's just see if committee members have any questions for you. And if Mr. Kumar.
Okay, yeah, I have two questions. One, you've already answered for me. You're improving the front yard setback situation, and I totally get that. That's why I was confused why the neighbor was complaining about it. But I'm a little bit concerned with some of the information that you've provided us in your letters of support. One of your support letters gives the address of number 7, and the objection is also from number 7.
Yeah, because he signed the letters.
Okay, so he's now in support. Is that what you're saying? But there's different names on like the.
Yeah, he signed the letter on August 8, and he write down the objections on August 11. And we don't know why, see, because we already, my homeowner, they can contact and they can talk with them, and at that time they are fine on August 8.
Okay, but
and after they can send the letter.
What is that individual's name?
And that individual's name is Salima Mulamba, and the letter name is different. Filipina T. Sooner. That's the different name, maybe husband and wife. I think so, yeah. I am not sure for that one.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in quickly. We did receive an email after the additional material sent out from 7 Valois Court, indicating that that they would like to withdraw their previous letters of concern. It's from Salima.
So who is this Philip?
Philip, it's my understanding, based on the registration, also resides at 7 Valois Court.
Okay, okay. All right, that just kind of threw me for a loop, but I got it.
Okay, that's one of the 10 letters of support we're talking about who is the speaker. So we clarified there's no major fraud going on here, so we can now proceed on the rest of the merits here. So it looks like the only issue we had was urban forestry. It looks like we have support. And if there are no other questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'm good to go forward with the motion. I believe the application has merit. I believe it's desirable in that some of the variances are actually being improved from the existing situation. I believe it meets the 4 tests. I would like to move approval. I would like to make that subject to forestry condition 1.
Thank you, Mr. Komorek. Seconder for that motion? Ms. Milkowski, thank you. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a good day. Next item is item number 31, 42 Guthrie Avenue. It's to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 4 variances. This matter is deferred from the July 14, 2022 hearing. Speaker is Juan Martinez. We have the materials from the previous hearing. Urban Forestry is looking for conditions 2 and number 5, a refusal. And I believe we have a planning report on this. And the planning report is for information purposes. Okay, and we have the planning comments, the forestry comments. Madam Secretary, is there anything in the additional materials on this application?
No, not for this one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Martinez. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Sir Chair and committee members. My name is Juan Martinez, located at 900 the East Mall.
Okay. Do we have anyone else on this application registered to speak or no?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we have Yuri Chibatari from 40 Guthrie Avenue registered to speak.
Okay, the next door neighbor. So, sir, why don't we have a presentation from you? And we can get your, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Supporting material, we can get your supporting materials up on the, that's the last application. I don't know if we have your materials, but why don't you give us a presentation, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go ahead and give a presentation.
Yep.
Yep. So through you, Sir Chair, I would like to start this presentation by noting that this application was deferred on July 14th, as we were waiting for an updated zoning notice after revisions were made to the plans, as requested through our discussions with planning staff. The revisions have largely improved the application which was previously submitted. More specifically, the revisions effectively deleted the variance relating to the building coverage and the area of the second-story platform, while the variances for the main wall height, FSI, and length have been significantly reduced. No new variances have been introduced by the revisions made, and as expressed in the staff report, the revisions that we have made have satisfied planning and they no longer have any comments on the application. So now in regards to the variances, the FSI proposed is 0.62 or 201 square meters. The intent and purpose of the FSI regulation in part is to regulate the size and massing of the dwellings. Considering that the proposed dwelling complies with essentially all building setbacks, maximum building height, it complies with depth, and now it complies with coverage, the massing of the dwelling proposed is not an overdevelopment of the site, as the massing of the dwelling is located at a location already contemplated by the bylaw. Additionally, we have found numerous approvals within the neighborhood for FSIs of an average of approximately 0.6 4 times the lot area, so slightly larger than what we are proposing. Thus, I am of the opinion that the proposed FSI and massing of the house is in keeping with the character and redevelopment trends within the neighborhood. Now, in regards to the main wall height variance, the front and rear main wall are proposed at 7.96 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum of 7 meters. This is a deviation of 96 centimeters, which would practically be imperceptible and wouldn't create any additional impacts than an as-of-right wall than an as-of-right main wall height. It is important to note that the dwelling does comply with the building overall maximum height requirement of 9.5 meters, and therefore the height of the dwelling is within what the bylaw already contemplates. Further, the front main wall contains vertical features, architectural features, which break up the massing of the dwelling along the front facade, further mitigating any potential visual impacts. Additionally, there have been various decisions within the neighborhood for similar main wall heights, such as in 39A and 39B Guthrie, which were approved at 7.92 meters, and they are located right across the street, as well as 40 Guthrie Avenue, which is the next door property, which was approved at 8.53 meters. Thus, I believe the proposed main wall height fits in well within the neighborhood and will not create any additional impacts than what is already contemplated by the bylaw. Lastly, in regards to the length variance, the proposed length of the dwelling is 18 meters, whereas the bylaw requires 17 meters. The purpose and intent of the length variance is in part to regulate the massing of the dwelling as well, and to ensure that the adequate space is provided at the rear yard of the property. Considering that the dwelling complies with the depth, front and rear yard main walls, rear yard setback requirements, as well as the side yard setback requirements, and essentially all building setbacks, it demonstrates that the proposed building length is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and will have little to no impact on the adjacent properties. The length proposed as well is very similar to the lengths on either side of the dwelling at 40 Guthrie and on the other side of the property. So based on this provided justification, I am of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context for the neighborhood, is consistent with the redevelopment trends along Guthrie Avenue and the broader neighborhood, and for these reasons, I believe the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
You're on mute, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to hear from the neighbor at number 40? Okay, if not, let's hear from Yuri Sibotari at number 40.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So I will speak on behalf of my husband.
Okay, can you let us know?
Yeah, who is sitting next to me.
Okay, what's your name, please?
I'm Natalia.
Okay, please welcome, and let's hear what your concerns are.
Thank you. So good afternoon, dear chairman, committee members. So we saw the drawings of the house that is going to be built, and according to the plan, it's going to be a quite long house that will affect our privacy. I mean, we will feel like on the stage in our backyard. We will not feel comfortable at all knowing that our neighbors will be able to see everything that happens on our backyard. In addition, his deck is long and wide that doesn't fit the standards. For instance, when I wanted to renovate my house, I was not allowed to make it bigger, and I followed all permitted sizes. Taking into account that his house is a bit uphill and is going to be taller than ours, I will not feel safe in the future because a big and narrow house on a small land, it will increase the house windage. I'm finishing the house renovation myself, and I don't want to deal with different issues in the future because of house windage. The weather is unpredictable, and I want to feel secure in my own house in the future. Another thing is that another thing is that due to the long house, we'll not have any sun in the afternoon in our backyard, which is not pleasant at all. In case we decide to sell our house, we will not able to sell it at a good price because their privacy, of potential buyers on backyard will be affected as well. Overall, I want to mention that when I started the house renovation, I considered my neighbor's opinion, and I hope that I will be heard as well. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you,
Natalia.
Mr. Botaro.
Yes.
Natalia, can we get your full name for the
Yes.
public record, please? Thank you.
Pardon it?
Your full name for the public record, please?
My full name?
Yes, please.
It's Natalia Trofim.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So it's a different name than Sibutari. So I don't know if you have the
Yes,
spelling of that.
still a different name. Yeah, we're working on that.
You have the name perfect. Thank you for your submission. So, ma'am, you say it was too long. You realize it was longer. It was 8:19, and they reduced it to what is it now? 18? Yeah, they did make it less long. But in any event, we also have the planning report on file. The planning department feels that they have no concerns with the application, and that's what So.
Yeah, but it's going to be longer than
Yeah,
our
longer,
house,
but
right?
not as long as it was going to be when they were here in April. So he did make it shorter. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's still 1 meter. It's further, still 1 meter further than what's permitted. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of that change and not from the one in April.
We saw the last drawings that were posted on 13th, and so
I just wanted to make sure you were aware of what was before us. Now we'll go back then to thank you for your comments. We'll go back now to Mr. Martinez to respond to what you've asked and had to say.
Of course, through you, Sir Chair, in regards to the length of the house, I would like to just point out that the house complies with depth variance, which essentially suggests that, or essentially the depth regulates where the main wall height is permitted to be located at. So essentially, if per se we were to cut down from the front of the house and move the house back, it would still the length and the depth will still be compliant. So the location of the rear main wall, it's essentially at a location that would be permitted by the depth requirement and by the bylaw. Now, if you look at the side elevations, there are no windows proposed along those walls. So that does consider we have considered the neighbors in terms of any potential visual impacts through each other's backyards. But again, the walls are the wall at the back is located at a location that's permitted. Now, in regards to the size of the deck at the rear, we also are proposing a deck that is compliant with the bylaw in terms of area. That was a variance previously in the previous application. Now that variance has been deleted. I believe those are the two concerns from the neighbor, and that's our response.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Does anyone want to have any questions for Mr. Martinez based on his rebuttal or for the neighbor at 40, or is someone ready to make a motion on this?
I've got a question and an observation, if I may. I believe the neighbor is located to the south of the property, to the south of number 42. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So sunlight would not be as much of an issue as if they were in the opposite direction. And I believe you're projecting about 1 meter past their houses. I'm trying to get a rough idea from your site plan.
Approximately. I believe it might be less than that.
Okay, but it's no more than 1 meter at the most.
Give or take, yes, sir.
Okay. And forestry had some concerns. Have you been able to resolve or address those?
Yeah, so I did review the forestry report. They did tie their recommendation to denial to variance number one, which was variance number one for the previous application, which was the coverage. That coverage variance has now been deleted. There is no variance. So I reviewed the report. I'm not sure how if there have any issues. I believe they have an issue with the tree at the front, and we have no problem going through the required process if that tree was to be injured or obtain the required permits for that
Is
tree.
that a privately owned tree at the front?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone ready to weigh in with a motion? If no questions. Mr. Kumar?
I'm good to go. I believe the applicant has made substantial progress in revising the application, and I believe it now does meet the 4 tests. I would therefore like to move approval subject to forestry condition number 2 with regard to private trees.
Thank you, sir. We have a seconder for that motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and thank you to the neighbors at 40 for participating and letting us know what your concerns were. Thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 32. This matter was deferred from the June 9th, 2022 hearing. It's an application for second story rear addition, a 1-story front addition, a new rear yard deck, and a 1-story south side addition. We have a planning proposed report with the condition of approval, but they're otherwise okay. They want it to be constructed as illustrated for a lot of the go through that set out in the report. And the speaker on this application is Sean Galbraith as well. The owner is present on the line. And Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2. We have a very helpful summary of changes that's been provided. Mr. Galbraith, welcome.
Sean Galbraith, planner here on behalf of the application.
Welcome, sir. Okay, can you just go through what's happened since this matter was before the committee back in June?
Sure. So it was deferred because of staff concerns with some of the variances. And so the owner and the architect have made some revisions. In the recent cover letter that I submitted, there's a handy table showing all of the changes that have been made. With the exception of the aggregate side yard setback, all the other ones have been reduced, and 2 of the variances have been deleted entirely. So it's better in pretty much every respect, and to the satisfaction of planning staff.
Yep, and we have no neighbors present or any other other than urban. You're okay with the urban forestry condition and the planning condition? Okay,
Yeah, and we've neighbors were consulted, and nobody had any concerns.
Yeah, your summary of variance changes should be a standard thing to be provided when people come back after making changes on a deferral.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Mr. Galbraith, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Prepared to make a motion, commend the applicant for the excellent presentation and addressing the needs of planning, and prepared to make a motion to approve this application. And I don't believe there are any conditions, correct?
Urban forestry 2.
Urban forestry 2 condition.
And the
tied to plans.
And the planning condition, tying it to the construct as illustrated in the set out in the planning memo.
Yes, in addition to that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reddick. We have a seconder for Ms. Reddick's motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Next application is item number 33, 17 Melody. And we have, this is an application again before the committee in July the 14th hearing. It was deferred. This is a constructed 2-story rear addition, which will include an attached garage along the west side of the dwelling, a new covered front porch, and the existing detached garage located at the rear of the dwelling will be demolished. There are 3 variances, and the speaker, there's planning, transportation, and we have the materials from the previous hearing. And like I said, we have the transportation. Planning wants a condition of approval as shown on the site plan as it relates to the west side yard setback and the front yard landscaping. The speaker is Francesco Siginardo. Speaker on this application.
Oh, good afternoon, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. How are you guys?
We're good. Almost done.
Yes.
You're Francesco Siginardo, one of the co-owners of the property, right? Correct?
That's right. Yes, I'm the owner of the property.
Okay. Could you just summarize what's happened? I see Urban Forestry wants a condition. What's happened since July 14, 2022 hearing?
Yep, absolutely. So
you're okay with it? And we have the planning report just to clarify that you're okay with the conditions being proposed.
Yes, everything's fine. And just to answer your question, Mr. Chair, in summary, first go around, we had some discussion with some of the city staff. They had some concerns around the setback where the garage is going to be and the porch, just because they'd like to see, I guess, more landscaping specifically when it comes to the porch. And so we made some revisions through the architect, the folks that are helping us out with the application, to shrink the size of the porch and also shrink the size of the garage. Basically, the garage it has to be demolished because it's older. But in terms of the placement, the intention was to have it placed exactly where it is, but now we've just made it smaller to satisfy, whatever was asked of us. And that's essentially it. And so because of that, additional changes had to go out to the neighbors to let them know that this was the suite of revisions that were going to happen. And so we requested to defer, and that's basically it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just, as you're speaking, I'm just going through, it's a quite comprehensive planning. They, when in the same memo that they've asked for the condition of approval, they've explained basically in great detail what happened and how they're now satisfied and have no concerns for the proposed front yard landscaping variance. So they actually give a very and then they go ahead with their conditions. So I think it's pretty well set out for the committee to consider what the situation. I don't believe we had. Do we have any other speakers on this? Staff?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. It's just the owner.
Great. I think, yeah, the rest of the afternoon, we only have unopposed matters. Okay, so committee members, any questions for Mr. Siginardo, or is someone ready for a motion? I think it's pretty succinctly set out by planning staff and by the owner in his presentation.
I'm good to go with the motion if no one has any questions.
Yep, I think you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I believe the application meets the 4 tests and would like to move approval subject to some conditions. Condition 2, forestry, and planning condition that it be tied to the site plan and landscaping plan submitted July 25th, 2022, as related to west side yard setback, front yard setback, and landscaping.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Komorek. Seconder for that? Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have Ms. Reddick, you in favor of that? Okay, you have unanimous approval.
Thank you so much, folks.
Sure, okay. Our next application is item number 34 Agar Crescent. It was deferred from the June 30th, 2022 hearing. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage and a second-story rear platform. There are 5 variances, and the agent is Juan Martinez. Welcome back, sir.
Good afternoon, Sir Chair and committee members. Yeah, I'm back.
We do have planning comments, and we have the material from the previous hearing. If you can just summarize what has gone on since then. And they're basically looking, community planning, for a condition to construct as illustrated on the architectural plans as it relates to the length, the building lengths.
Of course, through you, Sir Chair. Yeah, I would like to just provide a full presentation to explain the variances.
Okay.
So, so this item was previously deferred on July 30th to allow for more time for discussions with planning staff regarding the variances requested. As such, the main difference from the previous application to today is the reduction of the FSI from the previous 0.57 times the lot area to the current 0.54 times the lot area. The reduction was done to bring the FSI down to a number that planning staff believe to be more representative of the existing and the planned context in the surrounding area of the subject property. Through the discussions with planning staff, we also explained that the length, depth, and coverage variances are directly related and solely due to the structure which is located below grade. And based on this, planning staff are now in support of the application subject to the condition, which we have no problem accepting. So now in regards to the variances in front of you, all variances under the bylaw, again, are related to the portion of the house that's below grade, except for the FSI, which obviously applies to the entire dwelling. If I can ask staff to pull up the site plan for the proposed dwelling. And then actually it will help more if you go down to the elevations, the side, any of the side elevations of the house. Should be one more. Yeah, and if you can just zoom in, please. So basically the depth and length were identified to be 20.3 meters, whereas 19 meters of the depth is required and 17 meters for length is required. So these variances are solely due to the structure that's below grade and are below the rear deck, and they are for the cold room of the house. However, the house above grade will have a length of 16.99 meters and a depth of 18.69 meters, which again comply with the bylaw. Therefore, again, these variances we discussed with planning staff, they had concerns again with the number itself, but again we have shown through discussions with them that again the variances solely relate to below grade.
Yes.
Now, in regards to the coverage, is the same thing. The coverage is 0.5 percentage larger than what is permitted. And again, it's only 4 square meters than what is permitted. And similar to the length and depth, it's due to the area covered by the cold room below the rear deck. Now, lastly, the FSI proposed, which is 0.54 times the lot area, where the requirement is 0.45 times the lot area. It's an increase of 9% of the permitted FSI, and it's less than 60 square meters, which will be shared between the 2 floors. Again, this regulation, it's to regulate the massing and size of the dwelling, and considering that there is no height, there is no building setback variances, and the coverage length and depth are for the below grade. It just demonstrates that above grade, the massing, it's not an overdevelopment and is located at a location that's permitted by the bylaw.
Okay,
Therefore,
thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah,
we need to hear further. It's also what you said about the. It's only because of the cold room is set out in the planning report as well, and they summarize your changes. So
exactly,
I'm certainly convinced you've done a good job, and they're more. You said at the outset, they were more. You brought down the FSI just a nominal amount from 0.57 to 0.54 to satisfy planning. So you've obviously done what they've asked. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Martinez, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Thank you, Mr. Kamara.
Yeah, I find the application to meet the 4 tests, and as you say, they've done a great job with planning. I would like to therefore move approval subject to forestry condition 1 and 2, and planning condition, which is that it's tied to the plans as illustrated, as illustrated on the plans dated July 8th, 2022, relating to the building length to address the cold room issue.
Great, thank you. Seconded for Mr. Comerick's motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Have a great afternoon.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our last application of the afternoon is 35 A, B, and C, 1090 Kipling Avenue. It was before the committee July 28th, like our last hearing. And it's for consent to sever the property into two undersized lots on the site of each, to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage requiring variances to the bylaw. Looks like there's 13 variances to the bylaw in each case. And we have, if can get staff to summarize what's before us on this.
Sure. We have conditions from engineering and construction services. Part of those will be for the consent due to the dedication. An email from the agent. Planning is recommending refusal. There's a letter in opposition from 1091 Kipling Avenue, and then you have the previous hearing materials.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bartosik. We only have the one speaker, Mr. Eagleman, so welcome, sir. I think you're off in the first and the last hearing, application of our hearings. Today, you're only the last.
Yes, good afternoon, Sir Chair and committee members. David Eagleman, 900 The East Mall, Suite 300, and I'm a planner here on behalf of the owner.
Okay. You got you got a lot of variances, and you got a lot reduction that's from 15 meters required to 7.62, and a lot area of 555, and you're coming in at 310. So perhaps you can let us know why this application is worthy of approval. I'll note in at least the variance I'm looking at, it doesn't show the GFA is expressed in the percentage, just as meters squared. So perhaps you can add in and let us know what that is.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, before I get into my presentation, I would kindly request if I could perhaps have approximately 10 minutes for my presentation, considering this is basically 3 applications in one and is a fairly convoluted file.
Okay, well, go ahead and do the best you can, and I'll let you, since you're the last application of the day and there's no poor citizens and other applicants waiting behind you as you take an extra 5 minutes, and there's no one here in opposition, I think I would say that would be a good thing, because we want the committee to understand what they're approving. And if it takes you 10 minutes in this case,
I just want to caution the applicant that you're entitled to the 5 minutes. That's fine, the chair, but please note moving forward, you can't be asking for that for all your applications, regardless of if it's a consent with related variances, okay?
Understood.
I want you to think that this will be a precedent moving forward.
Right. I'm just saying, it's my concern is more because there isn't anyone waiting, and there's no one here in oppositions that's going to say you took even more time, and that's a ground of appeal. That it's in the best interest of what we do here, that the committee understands what they're being asked to either approve or refuse. So let's just go ahead and hopefully try to keep it as much under 10 minutes as you can, Mr. Eagleman.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will try and be as fast as possible. Okay. So I will begin.
On your mark, set, go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, good afternoon. Before getting into the variances, I would like to note that I have reviewed the report from ECS issued for this application, in which ECS indicate that they have concerns with the proposed parking space width. I will address that in my discussion on that variance specifically. I have reviewed the report from planning staff, and I respectfully disagree with the conclusions of their report. I will address the reasons for my disagreement within my presentation. And I will note that this application was previously deferred as a result of a missed variance, but we did try and work with planning staff to satisfy them on the variance end of the application. Unfortunately, we have made a number of revisions to the proposal, significant revisions. Unfortunately, those revisions were not to planning staff satisfaction. So we are proceeding with the application today. And lastly, I'll note that no other city departments other than ECS and planning staff have expressed any concerns or objections with the proposal. And no other neighbors other than the one at 1090 Kipling has expressed any concerns. And I will note I have reviewed that letter as well. And it is more a letter of questions rather than objections or concerns. So regarding the proposed consent, the proposal is to sever the existing lot into 2 new lots with frontages of 7.62 meters and areas of 311.12 square meters for both Part 1 and Part 2. There have been other severances approved on Kipling Avenue in close proximity to the subject property, which include 978 Kipling Avenue, approved at the exact same frontages and areas as the proposal. 982 Kipling Avenue, approved at 7.62 meters and areas of 311.1 square meters. Again, almost exactly the same as the proposal. 1023 Kipling Avenue, approved at frontages of 8.77 meters and areas of approximately 343 square meters. And 1030 Kipling Avenue, approved at frontages of 7.62 meters and areas of 311.12 square meters, the same as the proposal. These previous approvals, which are all along the same stretch of Kipling Avenue between Bloor Street and Burnhamthorpe Road, demonstrate that the proposal will be in keeping with the surrounding character and will fit in harmoniously with the adjacent and surrounding properties. Further, Kipling Avenue is identified as a major arterial street. The subject property is in close proximity to the Kipling Avenue subway station, and there is TTC bus transit route along Kipling Avenue, which all contribute to the fact that intensification along Kipling Avenue is appropriate and is good planning. The proposal also includes a public benefit by way of a required road widening along the Kipling Avenue frontage, which has a depth of 4.89 meters and an area of 74.52 square meters. The required road widening has the effect of reducing the total area of each of the proposed new lots, but it is in the public interest and is a benefit to the community. Moreover, the city is currently examining policies and regulations applicable to lands designated as neighborhoods through the expanding housing options in neighborhoods and has already implemented changes within these areas through the laneway and garden suite permissions. The city recognizes the need to increase housing supply through intensification within neighborhoods, specifically along major streets, and is considering permitting multiplexes within all areas designated neighborhoods through the expanding housing options in neighborhoods work. As such, the proposed severance for the 2 new single detached dwellings is a gentle form of intensification within this neighborhood along a major street, which considers the need to increase housing supply within the city and will contribute positively to the neighborhood. Similar lots in terms of frontages and area form part of the character of this neighborhood, and the proposed new lots will respect and reinforce the existing character of the neighborhood. I will now just briefly, as fast as I can, go through all of the variances required. I will deal with both Part 1 and Part 2 together, considering the variances are almost identical.
Mr. Eagleman, I'm going to let you keep going a little bit, but I want you to focus in on the important things. And the one thing I see here is that community planning in there, Mom, and I'm saying, these other approvals that you gave on Kipling, I agree it's a major ulterior street. They say in their memo, there are no properties within the immediate context that have lot frontages of similar size to the proposed lots in the broader neighborhood. Only one property was found with a lot frontage measuring between 7.5 to less than 9 meters. Am I reading the wrong application? So I agree. These other ones you told us about, were they approved pursuant to committee? They were severances, right? Because you got to admit, on the face of it, it's the lot frontage is about half of what's permitted. But I agree, it is a major ulterior street. That's what I think. So where are those other properties you mentioned? Please, that's the important thing. Don't walk through your 13 variances, but I stopped you you were at 430 or something. So please continue, but let's focus on the important, but this is the most important issue. Who's right? You or community planning? It is a major ulterior street. Can you get some information on where these and how they were approved? They say there aren't any. You say there are.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I because of the fairly brief memo that planning has provided, I do not know what area they're considering when they're making those statements. I can tell you that the approvals I noted are all along Kipling Avenue between Burnhamthorpe Road and Bloor Street West, which
Okay,
is,
what are the addresses again?
so that is 978 Kipling Avenue, which is located closer to Bloor Street West.
Pretty close, yeah.
982 Kipling Avenue, which is very close to the first one I just mentioned. 1023 Kipling Avenue, which is just north of Tyre Avenue along Kipling.
Okay, and to be fair, let's deal with even numbers, because the other side of the street may be different. I'm not sure, or you tell me. I'm working, the same. It is a major ulterior road. That's what I'm saying. Let's focus on that and on the major issues here of what they're identifying of what we're doing here. And you're telling us that these other lot frontages also have similar FSIs to what you're proposing and lengths and everything else?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, they do. Those other properties have similar variances. Not all the exact same variances, but they do have similar variances, specifically 1030 Kipling, which is on the same side as the subject property. On the same side as Kipling, of Kipling Avenue, was approved at a FSI of 0.95 times the lot area, where we are requesting an FSI of 0.9.
Okay. And then the last thing I say is they say that it presents as a 3-story and 2-story is what the immediate context is characterized by.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I believe the planning staff is making that statement on the fact that we have an integral garage. And that character does exist specifically on the other severances that have been approved on Kipling Avenue, because the lot widths make it necessary to provide an integral garage. So we are providing an integral garage, and I believe that is what planning staff are referring to as appearance as a 3-story dwelling. However, we don't have a variance for number of stories, and the height variance is very minor, and it also is further reduced by the fact that the established grade is located below the finished grade. So the height will be perceived to be even lower than what the variance is reading.
Okay, I think so. I stopped you. It was like 4 minutes and 30 seconds, but I think I've asked questions that need answering. So if you can please try to wrap up, and you don't have to go through every variance in detail, but this is what's before us. So
yes, through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. How about
yeah, I don't need that much more time. I won't go through each variance. I'll just note there have been other FSI approvals, as I mentioned already. 1030 Kipling approved at 0.95, 1060 Kipling approved at 0.94. So the massing is consistent with the character. The proposed front yard setback is due to the required road widening. The proposed side yard setbacks are both internal to they face both new dwellings, and the external side yards, which face existing dwellings on either side, are compliant with the bylaw requirement. The proposed length is only 27 centimeters greater than what is permitted, which is very minor. And as I already noted about the height, and this also applies to the front main wall height, the established grade is located below the finished grade. So both the overall height and the main wall height will be perceived to be lower than what the variances are reading. The front platform encroachment is similar to the front yard setback. It is caused by the required road widening along Kipling Avenue. And lastly, I'll just touch on the parking space width. The proposed width is a reduction of only 22 centimeters, which is less than a foot. This is a very minor reduction, and the proposed parking space width will still allow for a vehicle to be parked in the garage and will still allow for a door to open in the garage. So I believe that the variance meets the intent and purpose of the requirement. And so based on the justification provided, I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context for the neighborhood. I believe this application represents good planning and meets the test under section 5124 as well as 45.1.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eagleman. So like I said, I think the main thing was to understand. So the last two properties you mentioned were just for FSI or GFAs and those weren't severances. It's the other ones that were severances, the 978, 982, and the 1023 on the other side of the street, correct? And
Well,
those were before, but done by committee in the relatively recent past.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in regards to your question about the FSI, one of the severances at 1030 Kipling, that was one of the FSI variances I mentioned. And you know, some of the severances were done in fairly recent history. 1030 Kipling Avenue was approved in 2016. 978 Kipling Avenue was approved in 2017. So they were fairly recent.
Okay, but 978 and 982 and 1023 were also consent to sever the properties. You cut properties, and whoever did that, those were severances at 7 point whatever, correct?
Correct. And 1023 was done in 2018. I believe that is the most recent.
And again, that was a severance.
Correct.
And that's the other side of the street is more or less the two sides of Kipling more or less the same. It's not like you have retail on one side, or we're talking similar situations on both the odd and the even side of the street.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it's basically the same condition. It's single detached dwellings along fronting onto Kipling along both sides.
And like I said, it is a major ulterior street. So okay, let's see if the other members have any questions or clarifications required, or if they're ready to make a decision on this.
I have some questions.
Yep.
Sorry, so the proposed GFI is 0.9. Is that what is for variance 3?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Based on my calculation using the statistics on the plans, it is 0.9 times the lot area.
Okay, and you're proposing houses of about 3,000 square feet. How does that square footage compare to the examples that you cited earlier?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the other approvals, for example, 1030 Kipling, approved at 0.95 times the lot area. That was approximately also 3,000 square feet. And there are other approvals. This is not a severance, but excuse me, it was a severance at 1060 Kipling, but there was no variances for lot area. However, there was variances for FSI also at 0.91 times the lot area, and that was approved at 500 square meters.
Okay, what about 1023, 978, 982?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, 1023 Kipling was approved at 0.74 times the lot area, which amounts to 286.94 square meters, which is also just below 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
978 Kipling Avenue was approved at 0.73 times, which was 228 square meters, so closer
Quite a bit
lower
less,
than
yeah.
3,000. Yeah, quite a bit less, but there are other dwellings in the neighborhood that are similar or larger than the proposed.
But they're probably on larger lots, but okay.
Yeah, you mentioned something about that the numbers are exacerbated because you're giving away some land for road widening. But does everyone else in the same boat? These neighbors do the same when they did theirs? Like road widening's got to be the.
Yes, anyone who applies along Kipling for consent.
Okay, so it's apples to apples. You can't use that argument because they did the same, so their lots got reduced also, right?
Through
Just
you,
to be
Mr.
fair.
Chair. Yeah, that was in reference to the front yard setback. So I was just saying that the front yard setback is caused by the required road widening.
Okay. And also makes the lot smaller, I guess, to some extent.
Yes.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Eagleman, or is someone ready to weigh in on this?
I'd like to make some comments as we take this into committee before we do a proposal, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Yes, certainly.
I completely agree that intensification along Kipling is a positive and needed thing, and I'm certainly prepared to support the severance. But I'm also somewhat leaning towards the recommendations of planning that what we're looking at here is a bit of an overdevelopment for the undersized lots. So anyway, those are my feelings, and they're going to reflect the motion I may put on the table unless someone else has something else to say or want to put out.
I always am the opinion that, what you do when you come to committee for variances is a little different when you come to create a substandard lot, and then you also push the envelope on that lot. I agree intensification, I agree it is a major ulterior street, which you give a little more leniency to, but they do point out they do perhaps say that there's nothing in there. You sort of question their report when they say there's nothing in the immediate vicinity that comes close to this. So you kind of raise your eyebrows at that. But, maybe again, it should have been twigged a little more to maybe just not come in with the 3-story appearance to make sure that it's the biggest. They do say it's going to be the biggest based on the lot area. You mentioned the size of the square footage, so I would make that comment as well. I like to we're here to approve things at committee. We're not here to refuse stuff, but when they come in, after, and it's had the opportunity of a deferral, and this is what they came back at. I don't agree it's as egregious as planning made it sound, but I do think it crosses the boundary because it is a consent, as opposed to if it's already a lot and they decided to, that's that's my thinking. Anyone else have any comment to add to that, or I guess we have to, waiting for a motion on this. I'm glad we've spent the time to make to hear a full presentation, very good presentation from Mr. Eagleman as usual, and having that full and frank disclosure as to what it is. And any other comments? Anyone else want to weigh in? And if not, I'll wait for a motion.
I'll weigh in with a motion, which I think will be reflective of my desire that we should intensify Kipling, but at the same time, my concern that I think this application pushes the limits to a bit of an overbuild on each lot. And the only way I can reflect that in a motion is to put forward a motion to approve the severance, but deny the variances.
I don't think we can do that because that gives him carte blanche to, typically, I remember back in when I was doing this 25 years ago, it was possible to do a severance without having associated variance. Miss Barb, is that?
So the problem is you cannot create a substandard lot And they do have variances for lot frontage and area.
Okay.
Yeah, big ones, major, it's less than half. It's just over half, sorry,
You can
7.5.
split the decision on the variances, should you want to. So that,
What do you mean split the? What do you mean?
so if,
Approve some and not others.
yeah, so if the intent is to approve the consent, then it would make sense to approve variances 1 and 2 for the 2 minor variance files, and then refuse the balance of the variances if that's if you're not happy with the proposed dwellings.
Okay, well, at least that moves further along. You have to very new fresh application, actually 2 fresh applications once the lots are created. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen where we've agreed to a severance and just granted the basic lot frontage and lot areas. But again, I'm waiting for a motion.
Sorry, Barb, so we would have to approve variance, right? I get you. We'd have to approve 1 and 2.
Correct.
And then Mr. Eagleman's client or clients, once the lots are created, would have to come back with fresh applications in order to do anything other than build as of right, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Or appeal the decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable approving the application in totality as it sits.
Okay, so is your
I prefer
motion?
to make a motion if you're not.
So
Go ahead, Sophie.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion to reject the severance and variance application. I'm to share the concerns of planning that it doesn't conform to the official plan.
Okay, so your motion would be to refuse the application in its entirety. Okay, thank you. I have a seconder for that motion. Okay, if none, do I have a new motion?
I'm going to try, and my inclination was to do the refusal, but as I say, I don't want to send the wrong message. I think we do need to intensify Kipling. So I'm going to propose approval of the severance and only the first 2 variances.
Okay. Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion?
And sorry, you're refusing variances 3 to 13
Correct.
for the 2 variance applications.
Which should result that once the lots, well, provided they go ahead to finalize the consent, they'd have to come back on each side unless they wanted to build what was permitted as of right.
Yeah, and that of course is subject to the usual ECS conditions as well.
Well, that's construction. I don't think we've approved
No,
it.
you do, because they have the first few conditions you can impose because they relate to the dedication, which
and
is
then
for the
probably
consent.
street numbering and things like that, like not any.
Yeah, the standard consent conditions as well as the ECS conditions. We can limit it to, I think it's 1 to 3. Yeah, conditions 1 to 3 from ECS.
Okay, and did someone second that, or I can't remember? No.
Not yet.
Oh, Ms. McCluskey, okay, fine. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? I'm not creating a tie, so that's fine. Okay, so motion carries 3 to 1. Suitable King Solomon decision, or the alternative maybe, the King Solomon. We cut the baby in half. So on that, I just am awaiting a motion to adjourn at 4 o'clock exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Okay, I'll take that motion, Ms. McCluskey, seconded by Ms. Roddick. And thank you, everyone. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to our wonderful moderator today, whose name I don't even think I know.
It's another Adam.
Oh, another Adam. Okay, makes it easy. Thank you for that. I think Paul should change his name too then. Okay.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, as well as Annalisa and Nicole. Everyone will be named Adam. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Be well. Hope Danny feels better. And we'll see you all next time. Be safe.
Thank
Be
you,
good.
members.
Thank
Bye.
you.